Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this webinar with the Royal Society for Asian Affairs. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be. We are very pleased today to have Dr. Paul Chambers talking to us. Pleased in two respects, partly because he has an extremely interesting story to tell, but pleased also because he is actually at liberty to tell it, which was certainly not the case a few months ago. Um, some of you may have seen in the news in the spring this year that Paul was detained by the Thai authorities for, well, overall a couple of months um, uh, because of views he had expressed relating to the Thai armed forces. He is, I'm glad to say now, safely in the United States and is joining us from there. And it is a very instructive story that he has to tell, and one that uh, is increasingly visible in, I think, in a number of countries where previously sort of what I might, for simplicity's case, call malicious prosecutions, uh, didn't really arise in the same way, but there is a trend here. It's not just in Thailand, and so I think there's a broad subject here as well as Paul's personal and extremely disagreeable experience. I hope you'll find it interesting from that point of view. Um, Chairing today's session is Bill Hayton, editor of Asian Affairs. We're very grateful to him for taking this on. And I will hand over to Bill. I just remind you that we have a number of other events coming up in the relatively near future. Please check the website. We're talking about post-Assad Syria in about 3 weeks' time, and about Hindutva and Modi's India. Uh, so those also promise to be very interesting talks. But for now, let me hand over to Bill. Paul, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Michael. And I'm very pleased to be hosting this discussion with Paul Chambers. It was obviously, I mean, Paul has written for the Journal for Asian Affairs in the past, and so it was quite a shock to hear that he had been arrested back in April. And I'm so glad that he is now free to come and talk to us. But perhaps, Paul, before we get into exactly what happened, maybe just for people who don't know you that well or aren't so familiar with your story, or even with Thailand, perhaps you should maybe just outline what you were doing in Thailand. I mean, you were a university teacher, and what were you working on, and how long had you been resident in Thailand?
Thank you, Michael Ryder, Dr. Bill Hayton. Um, so I was in Thailand since 1993, first as a United States Peace Corps volunteer teaching English, and I stayed in Thailand, taught English. Uh, Later, though, I did go back in my PhD in the States, came back, and I was teaching political science. So I've been a teacher and a researcher in Thailand for approximately 30 years. Um, I did become more intrigued with civil military relations in Thailand and democracy. And I even worked with Thai military officials in ways to help engage in security sector reform, writing about that issue. And so it was a lot of moderates within the military of Thailand who were working with me. I never thought that I would have trouble then with the Thai military. And I have worked with them up until this last year. So this has been quite a shock
Mhm.
to what happened to me today. Um,
And you've published explicitly on the Thai army. I mean, you've written books and academic articles and things. What sort of things can you tell us? I mean, we might get to this in a bit more detail later on, but kind of, just for anybody who's not so familiar with Thailand, how important is the military to politics in Thailand?
Okay, well, let me first the second question first, and that is the military in Thailand is perhaps the second most powerful institution in the country. You got to think about the power holders in Thailand in a nutshell, like the monarchy and the military dominate the country, and it is sort of like a partnership where the military is the junior partner. Okay. However, courts are very much, helping to instill monarchical domination. Okay. Um, in that respect, then, the military has often been a institution that tries to prosecute or go after uh, individuals that the military thinks are going against the monarchy, or perhaps sometimes the military would go after individuals who are criticizing the military, but then the military might say, okay, they're criticizing the monarchy. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what happened to me. I myself have written uh, several journal articles, book chapters, and some books about civil military relations in Thailand and the need to have security sector reform, reforms of the military, reforms of the police, okay, in order to have more civilian control and democracy. And that's where I got into the crosshairs of the military.
And had you had any inkling of trouble before because of what you were writing about? Had you been warned off or told that something you'd written, was going to get you into trouble?
Well, Bill, yes, I did. Well, I mean, so I also would make comments in the international press about military coups. I remember Time Magazine interviewed me, and I said, well, this coup of 2014 is not going to be good for Thailand's future. So this was something that the military did not like at the time. And so I was in the crosshairs of the military, or at least conservative military officials for the last 10 years. Okay. And I had also written or co-edited actually a book about corruption of militaries throughout Southeast Asia. One of the chapters was Thailand. It was called Khaki Capital. All right. Um, and my most recent book is a history of the Thai military. It's called Praetorian Kingdom.
Mhm.
And so this probably did not suit my it wasn't good for my relations with the Thai military.
Nice. Okay, well, I think we've set the stage quite well now, so people are going to get an idea about you and the situation. So perhaps maybe tell us the story of what happened. I guess it begins in April, does it? Last this year?
Well, okay, it actually starts a little bit earlier. Um, I think in order to understand what happened in April. So, since I had been writing critically about the military as an institution, and actually with the support of moderates in the military itself, um, in October of 2024, I began to have troubles. So what happened? On October 1st, a new Army commander came to ascend to the post of Army commander, General Pana. And General Pana is part of a very conservative, arch-royalist army faction. Okay. A few days after his ascendance, I was on a webinar with the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies in Singapore as part of this webinar. The webinar was about military reshuffles in Thailand. Okay. And on the webinar flyer, it mentioned that the king has more power than the prime minister, which in the Constitution is exactly what it says. But a few days after that, a journalist who's very closely connected with the Thai military wrote an article in a newspaper stating that I should be fired from my university. Then a few days after that, military colonels wrote a letter to my university saying, we're going to look into this Paul Chambers. And they actually sent several questions to my dean, Dr. Napisa Waitun, and we answered all the questions. What we didn't know was they sent another letter in November, which the university president of Naresuan University, where I work, didn't share with us. Okay, so no questions were answered. Well, because no questions were answered, in March of 2025, March 30th, charges were pressed against me. I was to be arrested on March 30th. It was only after some delays we were able to delay the arrest, and I would turn myself in, that I went to the police. Okay. Now, while I was waiting to go to the police, I contacted the U.S. Embassy, contacted the Thai Lawyers for Human Rights, TLHR, and eventually contacted Global Reach, which is an organization originally founded by Governor Bill Richardson in the United States. All of these groups started helping me, supporting me. And so eventually, on April 8th, okay, on the morning of April 8th, I was at the police station in Pitsanalok, Thailand, okay, where I work in Pitsanalok, Naresuan University. And I was faced with these charges. One charge was that I had insulted the king of Thailand, and that is under section 112 of the Criminal Code. The second charge was that I had violated the Computer Crimes Act. Okay, I denied both charges because they were both frivolous charges, flimsy, frivolous charges. But because I had been charged, the court in Pitsanalok refused to give me bail just on a charge, and they sent me to prison. Okay, and so I was sent to prison midday on April 8th. It was not a good experience, obviously. Prison never is. However, a lot of pressure from, number one, my wife, Dr. Napisa Waitun, the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Naresuan University. Number two, Thai Lawyers for Human Rights, okay, the U.S. Embassy, and eventually Global Reach. All of these pressures eventually got me out of prison on the late night of April 9th. Okay, and I got out of prison, but that was really sort of still the beginning of my troubles. So I got, I had to wear an ankle bracelet for 2 weeks. And beyond that, the Army and the police were still trying to put me back into prison. Okay. On May 1st, I found out that I had been fired by my university, which I think is because the Army pressured the university to fire me. Okay. Secondly, the police had raided my office without a warrant. They had raided the office, taken my computer. They tried to get into my house without a warrant. They were trying to put me back into prison. Okay. So it was an ordeal, a really big ordeal. Still, the regional prosecutor dropped the charges against me on May 1st. But I still wasn't out. Oh, that's over. No, it wasn't over. Why? Because in Thailand, if the regional prosecutor drops charges, the police can still pursue the charges. And they did in my case. And probably they did because I was charged with lèse majesté 112. I was the first foreign academic ever charged with this crime. Okay. And of course, the Computer Crimes Act charge as well. So the police eventually decided that they were, definitely pressing the charges against me, and it finally reached the only way I could get out legally would be if the Attorney General of Thailand, dropped the charges, and he did eventually on May 27th. But even though he had dropped the charges, the immigration police said, well, we're not going to return your passport yet, maybe in 2 months, maybe 3 months. And even if we return your passport, you don't have a green light to leave the country. So this then led to lots and lots of pressure by the U.S. Embassy on the Thai government, and also my wife helped. And on the 29th of May, the embassy called me and said, leave the country now. Okay, and my wife talked very closely with the immigration police. Immigration police followed me in their car. I was in a van to the Suvarnabhumi Airport, International Airport. Got there, and the immigration police returned my passport at the gate, gave me a green light basically at the gate to leave the country, and I left. Now, to this day, the immigration police will not give me a visa to go to Thailand. So my lawyers in Thailand, the TLHR, are trying to help me get back into Thailand if I can.
You want to go back?
That's the gist of it.
Yeah, and you want to go back.
Well, I mean, my wife is in Thailand, and so she's there. She could leave there, but all of her relatives are there, and her career is there. So but actually, honestly, if I go back to Thailand, I have heard that the military might bring new charges against me because they're looking at some of my other writings, okay, to see if I never did criticize the monarchy, okay, but that's not the point. I made some criticisms of military, and what they want is to haul me to prison because of that. And they'll use the monarchy as a way to try to get me to prison.
I mean, do you think that did they actually present evidence to you and said, this is what, we're basing the charges on, these comments, this writing here? So can you be fairly clear in your own mind what it was that they were using against you?
Yes. So there was a webinar flyer, and they said that, first of all, for the 112 charge, that I had personally posted that onto the website, actually, which I couldn't do. I'm not the webmaster of ISIS. How could I do that? But secondly, if you look at the wording of what's in the webinar poster, it never says anything bad about monarchy. It just says it says the prime minister is not as powerful. It implies that the prime minister is not as powerful as the king, which the Constitution says too. The second charge of the Computer Crimes Act, the police said that I am the owner of the website, which that's an ISIS website. So these are ludicrous charges, and they were so flimsy that it was pretty clear that they were trumped up
from the beginning. So I guess the question is why at that particular moment? Was the military trying to send a message, that it didn't want anyone to go looking into its sort of private affairs, and so they were using you to send a warning to everybody else, or what do you think was going on?
That's a good question. Uh, well, I get back to the fact that this conservative army faction came in on October 1st, and that's where my troubles began because I've been writing about the military since 2009. So why didn't they do it then? Well, during the military junta period, 2014 to 2019, I was not hauled into court. I am not I don't think I'm seen in Thailand as this ultra radical writer. Okay. As I said earlier, I worked with moderates in the Thai military to talk to write about military reforms. I even gave lectures at the Army Club. Can you believe it? And that was only a couple of years ago. So
On exactly these topics, on civil
yes, I gave a
military.
topic. I gave a talk about security sector reform
Mhm.
at the Army Club of Thailand. So it makes me think they don't want security sector reform or something.
Yeah. Yes. So, I mean, you're not the first person to be charged, under some of these pieces of legislation. So it's, I mean, would you describe it as a kind of catch-all piece of legislation that's used to?
Yes. Yeah, let me say, currently there are 281 people charged with lèse majesté. Okay. Um, and there are around 60 people in prison relating to lèse majesté, Section 112 of the Criminal Code of Thailand, insulting the king. These are just people put in, it's such a broad charge and section of the code that it's easy to put people in prison. Okay, 112 has become a political tool, so that if you don't like somebody for political reasons or whatever, you can just charge them with 112 and it can destroy them. Okay, because judges usually put the person in prison
Mm.
if they're charged with that. And so there are some specific heroes. I call them heroes of 112. One of them is Anon Nampa. Anon Nampa is an attorney who has been very adamant about reforms, political reforms in Thailand, including reforms of the monarchy and the military. Uh, um, and there are other heroes, um, but I would also say that the army and other institutions, they don't have to use 112 to go after somebody. They could simply use a criminal defamation law. And that's what's happening right now to a journalist named Murray Hunter, an Australian journalist who was charged by the Malaysian government. Okay, he resides in Thailand, and so Malaysia got the Thai government to charge him with criminal defamation too. And because he had written about alleged corruption in Malaysia, so
So
this
in
is
effect,
a way to silence people.
he's being put on trial in Thailand for an offence which was allegedly committed in Malaysia, in the case of.
Exactly. Exactly. So you know what? This is what I think. Authoritarian countries around the world could say, "Hey, if we have dissidents in Thailand, Thailand will be happy to prosecute them for us." That is
Mhm.
scary.
And have you noticed this is a long-term trend, or is this something you think, I mean, have the limits on expression, narrowed, much more radically recently in Thailand?
Well, I think it's been incremental, a trend that's been incremental, but over the last few years, I think you've seen a judicial authoritarian turn in Thailand. Okay. And by that, I mean, there's different parts of that, but one part of that is a really surge in prosecutions involving 112, criminal defamation, and other uh, cases. All right, and other types using other types of laws. So, long ago, the Thai military was a coup maker.
Mhm.
These days, you have courts as legal coup makers. Engaging in judiciary coups or using the courts to try to destroy people. That's the new trend. It's happening around the world, but it's happening in Thailand too.
So specific people being targeted, and whatever piece of legislation that can be, you know, used
Yes.
is.
Yes. So this, I think specific people are targeted to send a message.
Mhm.
Not just in my case, I think the message was to academics, foreign academics and domestic academics alike. So Thai academics might say, they went after this American, they could easily go after a Thai,
Mhm.
something like this. And for Murray, see the difference between Murray Hunter and myself. So Murray Hunter is a journalist. I'm an academic. So now the Thai, I don't know, the right-wing Thais who went up, who charged both of us could say, well, we went after foreign academic and now foreign journalist.
Mhm.
Test case. Yeah. A lesson.
And this is what, because they want the military to remain a black box that nobody kind of talks about what it does internally. Is that it, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's from the military. I think the military wants to remain an opaque black box.
Mhm.
Don't touch the military. I think that's the message. And I think also you got to think, well, where do these charges come from in the military? Because first of all, the charge was made by the deputy commander of the Third Army Region, okay, who's a nobody.
Yes.
Okay, so he was clearly told by someone higher up. Well, we already discovered through my connections that these charges did not come from the palace. And so if it didn't come from the lowly deputy commander or even the commander of the Third Army region, which is Third Army is responsible for Pitsanalok, where my Narisun University is.
Mhm.
Well, then it came from in between. So what's in between? That is it's called the Five Tigers, the Army commander, the deputy Army commander, two assistant commanders, and the chief of staff of the Army.
Mhm.
Somewhere in there is where the charges came from. And I think it is the conservative faction which ascended to power in the Army on October 1st, 2024.
Mhm. Mhm. So, I mean, it's unusual, I think, for people to talk about political factions within militaries. Is this something you can tell us a little bit about now, about kind of how, about the sort of the politics that exist within the Thai military that led to your imprisonment? I don't want you to lead you down a path that's going to get you into any more trouble. But if there's anything you can talk about here, I think it would be interesting.
Well, sure. I mean, by nature, militaries are factionalized. And the Thai military has had its share of factionalism. Today, there are two prominent factions in the Thai military. One of them is called the Wong Tae-wan faction, which translates generally as royal progeny faction. The second faction is the Budapest Payak faction, which is also called in English the Eastern Tigers, translates as Eastern Tigers faction. All right. The coup makers of 2014, the 2014 coup, was dominated by the Budapest Payak faction. Okay. And so they have been ascendant, Budapest Payak. Who's in Budapest Payak? Former Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha and his deputy General Prawit Wongsuwan. Okay. So because they were the coup makers, their faction became dominant. and 2014. Now, the Wong Taiwan faction, however, is the oldest faction, and it was dominant in the Thai army up until actually up until the 2006 military coup. Okay, because Thaksin Shinawatra, former prime minister, had been able to whittle away some influence of his own into the Wong Taiwan faction. Hence, the Buddha Papayak faction became more favored by the regal institution. And so, thus, these two factions have been important. I think you can also say that in 2018, a new faction was created. It was called the Kaodang faction. This was a faction that was created by close advisors of His Majesty. Okay, it was an attempt by these close advisors of His Majesty to try to control the factionalism. So they thought, okay, we'll have a faction created by the palace. However, today, the Wong Taiwan and Buddha Papayak are resurging. Okay, and so there still remains a lot of division. The current army commander is a member of the Wong Taiwan faction. Okay, and so I would say that he is more conservative and more willing to press charges than predecessor.
Okay, that's fascinating. And are they worried? That one thing leads to another, and ultimately you would be writing about corruption and that sort of thing, or is it just the idea that the military should be an opaque institution and they don't want it examined as a sort of point of principle?
Well, that's a good question. At this point, I have to surmise because I'm not sure which they were more upset about. I know in my heart that there are moderates that support improving the military to make it more transparent and more efficient. But I know there are also some old dogs, I'll call them old dogs, who don't want any changes. And who are they? Are they really upset at people who might, reveal corruption in the military? Or are they simply looking at other phenomena that I write about? I'm not sure, but certainly I hit a nerve. So
Yeah.
I think I know I hit a nerve, and someone in the very top of the military with influence made this happen to me.
Mm.
And it was an evil thing.
Mm. Now, I'm going to move to a broader topic, but I haven't warned you I was going to do this. I mean, just as you know, and probably many people watching this will know, obviously Thailand and Cambodia came to blows recently, and there's been an awful lot of discussion about why that was, and neighbours and fellow members of ASEAN. Are you able to say anything, from your view about what you think lay behind that confrontation on the border and why it flared up?
Well, yes, and I've written about this too. I think there were two causes, okay, that I can think of, okay, unless there's a hidden cause.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Hun Sen was
In the
angry at
former,
Thaksin. I'm sorry,
former
I've
Prime
made it
Minister of
familiarized.
Cambodia, just for those who aren't,
Okay, yes. So first of all, back in last spring, okay, the Cambodian strongman, whose name is Hun Sen, okay, his son is the prime minister, Hun Manet, but really Hun Sen dominates Cambodia. Hun Sen was angry at former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. At the time, Thaksin's daughter was prime minister in the spring of 2025.
So we've got two strong men, and their children are both the prime ministers of the neighboring country.
Right. Isn't that funny? Yes, exactly. But Hun Sen was angry at Thaksin because, first of all, Thaksin was supporting legalization of casinos in Thailand. And with legalization of casinos, then the revenue that would be going to uh, casinos in Cambodia would dry up. Number two, the Phua Thai party seemed to be supporting military raids on what we call them, these border uh, uh,
Scam centers, are we talking about?
scam centers, right? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
border scam centers. And that was not helping, that would not help Cambodia because a lot of the revenue from scam centers was going to the ruling party in Cambodia. So that's something that kind of started the feud between Hun Sen and Thaksin. Okay. Now, the second factor that really, created problems, leading to the July altercation on the border, is that the Thai army would not follow the orders of Prime Minister Patongtan Chinawat. So the second army commander, who's in charge of the region along the Thai-Cambodian border in the northeast, he announced publicly that he was not going to be using the map of the Joint Boundary Commission that the Thai-Cambodian uh, militaries had been using. He said he was going to use a map from the Thai Army Survey Department. So this
Wow.
is one thing.
Mhm.
Basically, the Thai Army, personified through this second Army commander, was making its own decisions and was not listening to the Prime Minister of Thailand. Okay. Finally, the audio clip that has been talked about where uh, Pat Tong Tan is heard talking to Hun Sen. Uh, and apparently Hun Sen recorded this and then revealed it publicly. In that audio clip, Pat Tong Tan is heard saying, Uncle, she refers to Hun Sen, Uncle, I'm sorry, but this second army commander of Thailand is causing all the problems. Okay. And so that is a smoking gun that shows that there was no civilian control in Thailand. The army is calling all the shots. So this eventually, this army, hostile army policy in Thailand, combined with the growing Cambodian hostile policy, led to a border clash. So there's um, it's there was no civilian control in Thailand, number one. And with regard to Cambodia, well, the Hun Manet, the prime minister, was simply listening to his father, who had a gripe against Thaksin. That's how I read it.
Mm, mm. And an object lesson in the failure of civilian control over the military. Kind of
Right,
right then and then. Yeah.
right.
And would you? I don't know if you can say anything about this. Would you think that the reason the army commander was choosing to use a different map was because personally they were a bit more nationalistic and they wanted to reclaim
Yeah.
territory, and or were they also playing a wider game here? Do you think?
I think they're playing a wider game. So at that time, the Phua Thai party was leading the Thai government. The Phua Thai party is dominated by Thaksin Shinawat. The Thai army has always been suspicious of Thaksin Shinawat. What better way to bring down the Phua Thai than to use nationalism and to turn people in Thailand against Pat Tong Tan Shinawat?
Mm,
And indeed, that's what happened. The Constitutional Court forced Pat Tong Tan from office. And who is the prime minister now? His name is Anutin, and he Chan Wirakun, Anutin Chan Wirakun, And Anutin is very close to the Thai army. In fact, Anutin has even publicly said, I will leave border policy to the army. Uh, he is willing to give the army a free hand, and I think in return, the army supports Anutin. That's why you don't need to worry about a future coup in Thailand if Anutin continues on as prime minister because he's the perfect puppet, actually,
For the military. The military have got.
for the military. For the military, he's a
Yeah.
perfect puppet for the military, right?
And can you explain a little bit? I mean, why does the military hate Thaksin Shinawatra so much? I mean, I've always, is it because he's a sort of oik from from the provinces, and they don't like him, as a sort of, he's not part of the metropolitan elite, as we might say in this country. Is that what it comes down to, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, I think it's more to it than that. He was a former foreign minister back in the 90s. He's a telecommunications tycoon who really, yeah, he got rich in both Chiang Mai, the northern big city of Thailand, but also rich in Bangkok. Uh, but the military was upset at Thaksin during Thaksin's first term in office. That was in 2001 to 2005. Why? Because Thaksin put pressure on the Thai military, installing Thaksin's own cronies into high positions of military power. For example, um, in 2003, Thaksin was able to place his own cousin into the post of army commander, even though his cousin had no real high level military experience. This really angered folks in the Thai army and the military. And besides this cousin, Thaksin placed several of his followers into high positions of the military. And that is what angered the military and set off their suspicions for any future Phua Thai government.
And I guess this comes back to the title of your book about Praetorian Kingdom. That I guess the army sees itself as somehow an institution that guarantees Thailand and doesn't want to be interfered with in that kind of a way. Is that right?
Yeah, well, actually, so that title, Praetorian Kingdom, derives from two sources in this case. First of all, yes, the old Praetorian Guard in Rome, where these are guardians of the old Roman emperor. Yeah, that's supposed to be what the military was used for, to guard, until today, to guard the king. But there's a second meaning for Praetorianism, which comes out of political science literature in the 1960s. A Praetorian state is a state that has military constantly intervening, constantly cooing, right? Engaging in coups. And Thailand is that way. So that's why I called it Praetorian Kingdom. Okay. Um, and, back in 1992, following this terrible massacre, the military's image was tainted at that time. It was thought by many scientists that military's days are over as an institution in Thailand and the world too. This is going to be a time when democracy comes in and flourishes. And actually, Thailand didn't see a coup for many years, but it did happen again in 2006, and it happened again in 2014. So Thailand is hiccuping coups. Why? Well, protecting its institutional privileges, yes, and also supporting or guarding the regal institution for the benefits of the regal institution and also for the benefits of the military, which is legitimized by that institution.
And do you think this has implications, for geopolitics in the region too? I mean, US is, so Thailand is I think it's the oldest US ally in Southeast Asia, and it's still formally a treaty ally of the US. Obviously, China has been wooing Thailand for some time, and investments in railways, for example, things like that. So, do the sort of internal changes in Thailand connect to these sort of US-China rivalries that are going on, or do you think it's a sort of it's a separate layer of politics?
Well, I think there's a link,
Mm-hmm.
and we can say that after the end of the Cold War, and especially when Thaksin came to office in 2001, that Thailand has followed a policy of hedging, where hedging means you try to create balance between two powerful countries. Okay, in this case of Thailand, it was the United States and China. China's very large, very powerful, and it's nearby, and it has a great, powerful economy. But the U.S. is the also powerful, and also the old ally of Thailand. And so there has been hedging. Okay, and the with regard to the military was very close to the United States in the Cold War, partly because the U.S. gave all these military procurement packages to the military. Okay, all kinds of toys and goodies. Now, China is doing the same to Thailand's military today, and so that's the benefit of hedging. The Thailand, or the country that's the hedger, can get military procurement from two different large countries and try to balance them. That's the difficulty. How do you balance them? And Thailand's tried. Now, in terms of geopolitics, in 2025, things are changing again. Okay. Because the Trump administration has been wooing Cambodia. Okay. Back in February of 2025, there was a meeting between a Cambodian statesman and a senior member of the Trump administration. So the idea was to get closer, to start having military exercises again together. Cambodia, by the way, had been very close, had become very close to China. Okay. Some even said it was a dependency of China.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the idea of the Trump administration was to kind of pull Cambodia away from this dependency. Okay. That being said, when this Thai-Cambodian border conflict erupted, it seemed to some in Thailand that the Trump administration was taking Cambodia's side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so what's happening here? It looks like that perhaps Hun Sen in Cambodia wants to engage in hedging. He wants to have both China and the United States to try to balance, maybe. But that situation is going to harm Thai-U.S. relations. Okay, because Thailand's already hedging between the United States and China. And if it looks like the United States is taking Cambodia's side in this border conflict, then Thailand might move closer to China. Okay, we saw this last week. The king of Thailand visited China.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's a pretty kind of sounds to me like a bit of signaling going on there. That we have options.
Well, yeah, yes.
But the military are not naturally pro-Chinese, I guess.
No, I would not say so. But there's not I think that the military of Thailand and simply the border clash itself has galvanized nationalism against Cambodia in Thailand,
Mhm.
right? And thus, if the Trump administration is seen as supporting Cambodia's side in Thailand, then you're going to have Thai people and Thai military tilting, at least temporarily, towards China. And at the same time, we have to remember that China is eager for this. China is sending weapons to the Thai military. China is engaged in military exercises with Thailand. China is offering Thai military cadets education, military education in China. Of course, the U.S. does the same thing, but I think at least temporarily, Thailand might tilt toward China, and it's necessary for the Trump administration to try to reset that tilt if it wants better relations with Thailand.
And I mean, obviously, you're not in Thailand at the moment, but do you get any sense of how the popular mood has shifted? Kind of US, China, as a result of this, or has the military now been able to make itself the patriotic hero of the country because of the confrontation with Cambodia?
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just a few years ago, the military was the boogeyman. Remember in the 2023 election, the progressive um, Gauklai party won that election. Okay, Move Forward Party, they call it in English. Move Forward Party won. Move Forward advocated military reform. And Puatai, the party of Thaksin, also wanted some military reforms. But 2 years later, Puatai is not popular, okay, particularly because of that revealed audio clip of
Mhm.
Patongtan. And Thaksin, her father, is in prison. Okay. There will likely be a election next year, and Thaksin will still be in prison. So, for that matter, the who is popular today? The military, because people are still seeing the military as guarding the border against that treacherous Cambodia. And yeah, certainly the military is on the top in terms of popular nationalism. However, however, the new People's Party, which is a carryover from the old Move Forward Party,
Mhm.
it could win the election that's coming up. It's the Move Forward. I'm sorry, the Move Forward now People's Party. It wants to have military reforms. I would say this: if sorry, it's now called People. If People's Party does win that election,
Mhm.
and it's a landslide election, and they certainly, if they really want military reform still, and maybe royal reform, there could be a coup in Thailand.
Mhm.
So right now, the military is on top in terms of popularity, and if they stage a coup against a People's Party government, there could be a coup.
Mhm. Okay, we have a question from one of our members, Hockey Walker, a former diplomat himself, and I think there might be a few other diplomats or former diplomats on the call who'd just like to ask you a bit about, what it was like to be in jail and how, were you supported or not by American diplomats, and what sort of consular access and access to lawyers were you given? Could you talk a little bit about that side of what happened to you?
Sure. In terms of being in prison, first, it was a scary experience because I didn't know when I was going to get out. Secondly, the biggest problem in prison.
Could talk. I
I'm sorry.
mean, were you in a cell on your own? Were you packed
Oh,
with
yes. I'm
30
sorry.
people, or were you,
I can.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you yeah. So when they put me in prison, I was handcuffed. They changed my clothes. I couldn't fit into the prison clothes, so all I could wear were pants. That's it. No shoes even. um, Walking down this really hot pavement into a quarantine cell with 37 men. And it was a small room. And so there was only space for just myself on a towel. There was a hole in the corner to go to the bathroom.
So
Okay.
38 of you in the room.
Yeah, I was in a room with bunches of people. In a way that was good because if I was by myself, who knows, maybe I would be found committed suicide.
Mm,
Somebody would have arranged that. So I thought, okay, that might be good that I'm with all these people. On the other hand, being with these people in this small room was problematic because they asked me why I was in prison. And I said, because I, I'm accused of insulting the king. So they would say, "You insulted my king?" And you know, you have all these, oh, it could be murderers in there, and they're telling you this. That's scary. Another thing about the prison in Pitsanaloke, I heard from my lawyer was that yes, in Bangkok, political prisoners are divided from the general population, but not in rural prisons, at least not in this rural prison. I was with the general population. So I always had people coming up to me, "Why are you in prison?" Because I am a, and if I didn't answer, they would get upset and worried. "Why are you in prison?" So I was in the quarantine room first, okay, with this very cramped room, 37 people. And then the next morning, I was moved to a room of 136 people. Okay, and that was a regular room for prisoners. It was also cramped. And I really started to think about the human rights of prisoners. I've never really thought about that. Okay. And I would like to make people more aware of that, you know, now since my ordeal. So the worst thing that happened to me in the prison was that I'll call the person the capo. He was the head of the prisoners. He was a prisoner, but he had good relations with the guards. He said to me, "If you are here for insulting my king, then you better get out on bail tonight or tomorrow." And he said, "If you're not, you're going to have a discussion with me and the prisoners, or the prisoners and I. Um, and this is serious." Okay. So I got very scared, realized
Yeah.
that, you know, whoever put me in this prison might do away with me and have plausible deniability. Say, "Oh, well, the prisoners did it." So that I was praying that I would get out as soon as possible. And luckily, and my wife led every effort, uh, got me out. And so who was behind getting me out, though? Um, Besides my wife, the U.S. Embassy, Robert Godek, U.S. Ambassador, the representative, Kelsey, um, and Kelsey came, as a representative of the U.S. Embassy, came to my prison, talked to her. Um, she came with a photographer, and they wanted to take photographs of my face. So there was a thick piece of glass between me and the outside world when she came to visit. And then she was in a room, and she said, "Let's see your face. Take the pictures. Take the pictures." And I found out later it was because they wanted to see if I had been beaten.
Right.
And so that was something. Um, and so the U.S. Embassy uh, and then Thai Lawyers for Human Rights, they were there at the prison helping me. Thai Lawyers for Human Rights works with all kinds of prisoners of charged with 112 and other crimes. And then the Global Reach helped me as well. So, but in terms of like everyday contact with those who were helping me. Once I got out of prison, the U.S. Embassy contacted me every day. We talked every day, or I contacted them. The U.S. ambassador was meeting with Thai government officials um, and trying to put as much pressure as possible on these officials. I think that I am very I mean, it's scary. I'm scared to say, but it's true that I got out because I was a foreigner, and that Thai people who are in for the same charges are not going to get out very easily at all. So the 112 carries a maximum of 15 years in prison per charge, and someone like Anon Napa is there for years, and he would be charged. He's charged already, and he'll be in prison for years and years and years unless he can get a pardon. He's a hero. And so the U.S. Embassy worked very hard and got me out of prison and got me out of the country.
Well, yes, I guess you're very grateful to that, to them.
I mean, yeah, I'm grateful, but um, I really want to support people who don't have the benefits I had,
Mm,
and Murray Hunter as well, who's having troubles in Thailand to get out, to have these charges, these ludicrous charges dropped.
mm, mm. Well, thank you ever so much for talking to us. An hour has gone by very quickly, and thank you for sharing what happened to you and the background. I think we've all learned a lot about how Thailand works at the political and the real level, and you've shone light on the fact that I think you said there are around 60 people who are currently in jail in Thailand under lèse-majesté laws. And there's this alarming case of Murray Hunter who has been picked up and in effect jailed for something that, if it was a crime, it wasn't even committed in Thailand. So it's a kind of very, bad situation for him.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I just wanted to add one final thing, and that is that the People's Party in Thailand has been very supportive of my situation and supportive of people who are in prison for 112. And I want to point out they are very bold and very brave.
Because for them, they're there. They're part of the situation, and
Right.
they have to exist in what could be a fragile, political situation for them.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you to everybody who's watched and taken part, and be aware that there's plenty more events coming from the Royal Society for Asian Affairs in the next few weeks and months, and we hope to see you at one of those anytime soon. Thank you very much indeed.